30 pirate galleons burned in the span of an hour. The most feared fleet in the world reduced to drifting ash. No cannons were fired, no warning bells rang. The sea itself just swallowed them in a sudden, unnatural fog. Captain Vane watched his empire sink from the helm of his flagship, a strange, breathless grin plastered across his face. "Well," he muttered, adjusting his collar as the main mast collapsed in a shower of sparks, "at least the rats are finally leaving." He wasn't looking at the fire. He was looking at his first mate, Elias. Elias, who was holding a lantern that had suddenly, inexplicably, gone completely dark.
They had 20 minutes before Admiral Thorne's galleons arrived to pick through the bones. Vane needed a heading. "Give me the chart, Grim," Vane snapped. The navigator didn't look up from his maps. "The stars are bleeding tonight, Captain. We go where the dead men walk." He slammed a piece of parchment on the barrel. It was completely blank. Silas, the elegant rival who had bought his way aboard, chuckled. "A blank map for a dead fleet. Poetic." "It requires blood," Grim hissed, staring at Silas. And right on cue, a shadow fell across the deck, Thorne's flagship, cutting through the smoke. A cannonball tore through the rigging, showering Silas in splinters. He simply brushed the wood from his silk coat. "I believe that's our cue to leave, Vane," Silas murmured. Vane grabbed the helm. His goal? Slip into the jagged teeth of Devil's Reef. A suicide run. Elias finally spoke, his voice dead flat. "We'll tear the hull. Then we'll walk on the pieces," Vane barked, spinning the wheel. Grim's compass wasn't pointing north. The needle was spinning wildly, finally locking dead straight, not toward the open ocean, but directly at Admiral Thorne's pursuing flagship. The needle only pointed at predators. The reef scraped the hull like a dying beast. They survived, slipping into an oppressive, suffocating fog. Below deck, Silas poured himself stolen rum. He wasn't hiding from the Navy. He was waiting for them. A heavy knock echoed against the wood, not from inside the ship, from the outside. Silas opened the porthole. A damp, gloved hand passed him a wax-sealed letter bearing Admiral Thorne's crest. Silas smiled. "The trap is set," he whispered to the empty cabin. But as he turned, the smile vanished. He locked eyes with Elias, standing perfectly still in the shadows, just watching. The fog grew thicker, crawling over the deck like a living thing. The air smelled of sulfur and old copper. Vane hated the fog. It felt like a lid closing over a coffin. His breathing grew shallow. A phantom tightness gripped his chest, the ghost of a mutiny years ago when he was buried alive. "You look pale, Captain," Silas mocked, ascending the stairs. "Just mourning your fashion choices, Silas," Vane shot back, though his hand shook. Suddenly, Grim's blank map began to bleed. Red ink bloomed across the parchment, drawing an island that shouldn't exist. And beneath the drawing, a single word formed: mutiny. The ship's main lantern shattered. Total darkness. Panic rippled through the surviving crew. "Hold your posts!" Vane roared, drawing his cutlass, swallowing his rising claustrophobia. Someone screamed. A heavy thud shook the deck. When Elias finally struck a match, the harsh yellow light revealed the quartermaster, pinned to the mast by a Navy dagger. Thorne's men weren't behind them. They were already on board. "Elias, secure the hold!" Vane ordered. Elias looked at the dagger, then up at Vane. "I don't think the hold is the problem, Captain." Elias slowly tilted the match. A thin trail of wet footprints led directly into Vane's locked private cabin. Vane kicked his cabin door open, pistol raised. Empty, but his hidden safe was hanging wide open. The missing item wasn't gold, it was a rusted iron key, the only key to Admiral Thorne's armory.
Silas leaned against the doorframe. "Careless, Vane. Did you drop it?" "Someone handed it to Thorne," Vane growled, his fear replaced by cold rage. He spun toward his first mate, Elias. Elias didn't flinch. "I see everything, Captain, even things you want me to ignore." A deafening crack split the air. The sea beneath them began to drain, pulling the ship into a violent, unnatural whirlpool.
The Maelstrom wasn't an accident, it was a geography trap, and the blank map had led them right to its throat. "Hard to port," Vane screamed, fighting the wheel as the ship tilted at a sickening 45 degrees. Grim was laughing, clinging to the rail. "The trap closes, the blood demands a toll." Silas lost his footing, sliding toward the plunging edge. For a split second, Vane caught his arm. Silas looked up, dropping his elegant facade. "Don't save me, you fool! Thorne doesn't want the ship, he wants—" Silas's words were cut off as a massive grappling hook smashed through the railing, sinking into the deck. Thorne had arrived. Dozens of steel grapnels slammed into the hull. Admiral Thorne's dreadnought rose from the fog like a floating fortress, anchored safely outside the whirlpool's pull. Thorne stood at the bow, staring down at Vane with disturbing, intimate familiarity. "You've run out of ocean, brother," Thorne called out, his voice cutting through the water's roar. Vane froze. The crew stared. The ultimate secret was out. "Adoption's a tricky thing," Vane muttered to Elias, forcing a smirk. "Never quite takes." But Elias was backing away slowly. He reached into his coat and pulled out the rusted iron key. Thorne wasn't invading, he was being invited.
"You?" Vane whispered. The betrayal hit him harder than a broadside. Elias stood near the boarding planks, the rusted key glinting in the lantern light. "I told you, Vane, I see everything, including how many men you left to drown in Nassau to save your own skin." Silas, pulling himself up from the deck, burst into dark laughter. "Ah, this is magnificent! I was paying the Navy, but the Navy was paying the first mate." Grim's compass spun frantically, vibrating until the glass cracked. The needle snapped off. "The blood!" Grim shrieked. Elias raised his pistol, aiming dead at Vane's chest. "Time to die in the dark, Captain."
Elias fired. Vane twisted, the bullet grazing his shoulder, but the force sent him stumbling backward. Before Vane could draw his sword, 3 Navy Marines vaulted the rail, tackling him to the wood. "Throw him in the hold," Thorne commanded, stepping onto the deck. "Weld the doors. Let the whirlpool take him." Vane's eyes widened. The hold. His lungs tightened, a primal scream dying in his throat as they dragged him below. The heavy iron grate slammed shut above him. Total, suffocating blackness. Whispers. Vane was buried alive. But in the pitch black, his bleeding hand brushed against something cold. A barrel. Gunpowder. The darkness pressed against his eyeballs. Vane's chest heaved. He couldn't breathe. The walls were shrinking. Up above, he heard Thorne and Elias dividing the spoils, boots thumping against the ceiling. Vane curled his fingers into fists, nails biting into his palms. "Focus," he thought. "Find the joke." "Well," Vane croaked to the empty darkness, "at least the rent is cheap." His fingers traced the powder keg's fuse. If he blew the hatch, he'd blow the hull. The ship would sink faster. But as he struck his flint, a second spark flared in the dark. Someone else was down here.
The spark illuminated a manic, half-blind eye. It was Grim, holding a lit match over the ship's main powder magazine. "The stars led me down here, Captain," Grim whispered, "to the belly of the beast." Vane stared at the explosives. His fear of the dark completely vanished, replaced by sheer, exhilarating madness. "Grim," Vane grinned, wiping blood from his cheek. "Remind me to double your share. Let's blow the roof off this coffin." Above deck, Elias handed the blank map to Admiral Thorne, but before Thorne could open it, The wooden floor violently fractured. Hell erupted from the hold. A blinding pillar of fire consumed the night.
The blast tore the deck to splinters. Vane rode the shockwave upward, launching out of the smoke like a demon loosed from hell, cutlass already swinging. He collided with Thorne, steel ringing against steel as the burning ship spun into the crushing maw of the whirlpool. "You were always a failure, Vane," Thorne spat, parrying a savage blow. "I'm a pirate, Thorne," Vane laughed, kicking Thorne's knee. "Failure is just my rough draft." Nearby, Silas threw Elias against the railing, finally choosing a side. But Elias drove a dagger into Silas's ribs, shoving the elegant rival into the foaming abyss. Vane disarmed Thorne, but Elias aimed his pistol.
"Drop the sword, Vane," Elias shouted over the roaring Vortex. Vane looked at his treacherous first mate, then at the defeated Admiral at his feet. The ship was breaking apart, seconds from being swallowed. "You want the ship, Elias? She's all yours." Vane grabbed a severed rigging line and swung off the deck, landing perfectly on Thorne's escaping dreadnought, just as his own ship snapped in half. Elias stood at the helm of the dying vessel, clutching the blank map, dragged into the black water. The traitor was gone, but as Vane looked back, a single bloody lantern ignited far beneath the waves.